If you grew up watching as much Cartoon Network as I did in the late 90s or early 2000s, you're probably familiar with the name Genndy Tartakovsky. This guy is an absolute titan of animation. We're talking Dexter's Laboratory, Samurai Jack, Star Wars The Clone Wars, The OG, Symbiotic Titan, Primal, and it's not even the full list. Early in his career, he also worked on Two Stupid Dogs and the Powerpuff Girls. The man stays busy. And more importantly, his style is instantly recognizable. You could spot a Genndy shot from a mile away. Strong silhouettes, exaggerated poses, moments of pure pin drop silence, followed by chaotic, cartoony energy that explodes off the screen. Eventually, Genndy made the jump from TV to feature films. His big break was directing Hotel Transylvania for Sony Pictures Animation. That movie did pretty well, so they gave him Hotel Transylvania 2. That one did well too. And then Hotel Transylvania 3, Summer Vacation. Now, these movies weren't his dream projects. His idea was simple: do these big crowd pleasers, prove you could work in 3D animation, and then cash in on that clout to give you a passion project. Because his big passion project was Popeye. Genndy loves Popeye. Even more than an yeah, watch it as a kid way, he deeply loves the character and the physical comedy of those original cartoons. He actually started watching those when he first immigrated to the US and before he even understood English. He made some test footage, a fully animated sequence, to show Sony how expressive, energetic, and funny Popeye could be in CG. Animation fans went nuts for the leaked footage. This was proof that Popeye could still work in modern cinema. But Sony shelved the project. And instead, they made the Emoji Movie. Yeah. Luckily, they did bounce back the next year with Into the Spider-Verse. But for Genndy, Popeye was dead. Here's the thing. In Hollywood, directors often make one for them, the safe studio-approved hit, so they can make one for me, the risky personal project, or a blank check project. For Genndy, every time it looked like the one for him was coming, Sony slid another Hotel Transylvania across the table. And he did them. They were successful, but clearly he wanted more. It was in this moment that Genndy was a little frustrated with where his career was heading. But that's when Adult Swim boss Mike Laszlo called him up. And in 2017, Genndy came back to finish Samurai Jack. Finally, the final season was here. It was darker, more violent, more emotional. In my opinion, it was phenomenal. If you haven't seen it, it's an amazing ending to one of the best animated series ever. And then he followed that up with Primal, which was sick. It's a brutal, dialogue-free caveman and dinosaur story. 2 seasons of pure visual storytelling. No words, just action, music, and raw emotion. At this point, Genndy has conquered TV animation. And he had 3 box office hits. Surely now the blank check project was coming. And yes, it did. It was greenlit. It was going to be something wild. It was R-rated, 2D animated, with a theatrical release, and completely unlike anything else in the American animation market. And that movie is Fixed. Fixed even wrapped production in 2023. But here's the thing, in the 2020s, movies can just disappear. It was produced at Sony Pictures Animation, but its distributor was New Line Cinema, which is owned by Warner Bros. Discovery. And this was during the early Zaslav era when Warner Bros. Was shelving finished projects for tax write-offs. Batgirl, that Scoob Christmas special, entire seasons of shows like Close Enough and Infinity Train just deleted from streaming. Once a movie is written off for taxes, it can never legally be released. I would imagine that Genndy was freaking out in this moment. Warner Brothers was his TV home for decades, and he probably heard lots of stories of what was going on behind the scenes. So once Fix lost his distribution deal, he probably thought that movie was dead and never to see the light of day again. But credit where it's due, Sony shopped it around instead of letting it vanish. It took 2 years, but Netflix picked it up, which means we could finally watch it. So how is Genndy's long-awaited passion project? Visually, it's stunning. This is Genndy at his absolute best as an animator. Dynamic staging, bold color choices, cartoon exaggeration that feels alive. And in 2025, a wide-release 2D R-rated anime movie from an American studio is practically unheard of. But here's the problem. It's just not funny. I laugh more at Strays. Yeah, the other R-rated talking dog movie. And awkwardly enough, that was produced by fellow Sony alums Phil Lord and Chris Miller. You know, the Spider-Verse guys. Genndy's strengths are in short bursts, 7-minute Dexter Lab gags, 30-minute Samurai Jack duels. He's a master of visual comedy and silent action, but 80 minutes of raunchy dog jokes, we've been here before. Ren, Stimpy, Family Guy. Robot Chicken, I guess. And honestly, those did it funnier. Having said that, Fix is still important to have received its release. We never get original R-rated 2D animated feature films in the US anymore. I mean, it's not as good as something like South Park, Bigger and Longer and Uncut, which is a masterpiece. And it's definitely not an anime import. But it's a major American studio producing a hand-drawn adult comedy in 2025. That's rare, and that alone makes it worth seeing for animation fans, even if it's not very good. In the end, Fix is more of an interesting career footnote than a must-see comedy. If you're a Genndy completionist, check it out. It's beautiful and weird, and it's pure Genndy energy. But if you're looking for big laughs, you're going to be disappointed. So good for Genndy, but yeah, this movie's pretty bad.